Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Throw, and on this edition it's Splatterhouse, brought to us by Namco for the Turbografx 16. Splatterhouse was originally released in arcades in Japan in 1988, making its way to North America in '89, and then finally for the Turbografx in 1990 for both Japan and North America. Splatterhouse is part of the action beat-em-up genre, and it's very similar to the classic NES game Kung Fu, moving from left to right with only a few basic attacks. Splatterhouse does add weapons to change up things a little bit, but in Splatterhouse it's all about the atmosphere and the graphics. Splatterhouse may seem pretty easy at first, but don't let that fool you. As you get farther into the game, it's all about memorization for being able to complete the game with taking minimal damage and losing only a few lives. As we begin Splatterhouse, I'll talk a little bit about the story. You play as Rick, who himself and his girlfriend Jennifer are two university students that go to investigate the West Mansion, which is the home of Dr. West. The West Mansion is nicknamed the Splatterhouse for some of the weird things that Dr. West was doing inside this house. He also collected lots of different artifacts from around the world. Once Rick and Jennifer enter the house, Jennifer is taken off by demons while Rick is attacked and left for dead. Rick's body is thrown into the dungeon, where the mask known as the Terror Mask, a Mayan artifact, comes to life and attaches itself to Rick, changing him to a superhuman form, giving him tons of strength and the ability to save his girlfriend. After our introduction, we'll jump into the world of Splatterhouse, and you're going to instantly see just how beautiful this game is. Now, of course, this is an arcade port, so it's not as good looking as the original arcade version, but it's very faithful, with only a few minor changes to the game, mainly the color of the mask, which is actually white in not only the arcade game, but in all the other Splatterhouse games, as well as the boss at the end of the 4th level has been changed. You move from left to right, and we attack enemies very simply by either hitting them straight up, we may have to duck at some enemies or do a jump kick to them, and you can pick up weapons by simply ducking down to pick them up, or pressing up if the weapon is in the background. The weapons are extremely useful, especially giving you range to hit enemies, and will do more damage to other enemies as we get farther along. The first level is very short, and as you can see we're actually already at the end as we climb up this ladder. For the first boss of the game, you have a series of these slugs that are going to jump at us from different sides of the room. You have to either attack them while they're jumping in the air, or duck down and deliver a quick duck kick in order to defeat them. Now this will go on for a little bit as you attack them, and at the end, as you can see, that hanging demon body in the upper left corner will actually release the last of the slugs, which will end the level. In Splatterhouse, you're never quite sure when the level has ended, so always be on your toes, especially when first playing the game, in case something's going to come out of any direction of the screen. The gameplay may be pretty simple, but just the beauty of looking at the game, and all the detail, and all the enemies and the animations that they are given when they're killed, knocked into the background, or get blown apart, is just absolutely brilliant for the time that this game was released. Level 1 was just a way to introduce you to the game, not giving you too much of a challenge. As we get now into Level 2, we have a different weapon that I just grabbed there in a wrench that I could throw across the screen, as well as now we have a little bit more variety in the enemies. You can see that they have these hanging demons, the one that shot the slug out of its stomach in the first boss battle, now are hanging from the ceiling and dropping down randomly, and we have to be careful about getting around them. As we make it to the end of this level, we drop down the ladder and we go into a sewer system. We grab the 2x4 in the ceiling, and now we have a series of these underwater swamp-like monsters that we have to fight. The hardest part about this area is definitely the spiked balls that are going to be coming from either the right or left side of the screen. The one thing about Splatterhouse, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about memorization. If you can memorize where the enemies are going to be coming from, they're always going to be coming from the same areas every time you play the game. It's very much like a vertical shooter in that sense. You memorize the patterns of the enemies, and you'll find out that it actually becomes easier and easier every time you play the game. Just be careful with the spike balls that you get enough momentum when jumping over them so you're actually able to bypass them and not end up landing on top of them. When you make it to the end, you climb up the ladder for the second boss battle, which is a possessed room, just like the movie Poltergeist. You can see the walls and the ground are shaking, and then all these objects keep falling from the ceiling, so be careful not to get hit by them. After they all start falling off, Then you're attacked by the furniture, first this chair, which is pretty easy to contend with because you can keep knocking it against the wall. After that, you must do battle with a possessed knife that's going to fly at you. Stay in the same spot, and as you can see, it's going to come in the same direction every time, and once it's defeated, you then have to take on two at the same time. Standing about where I am, you can see that I was able to knock one knife to the opposite side with the other one, and then I was able to keep attacking them together and not take any damage from them. Once the knives have been taken care of, the hardest part of this battle begins, and that's the picture frame that attacks you. It's going to bounce off the walls in a weird pattern that's going to take a few tries to get down on where to stand. Once you've taken care of it though, the spirit leaves the room, and then for one last thing, the chandelier falls from the ceiling, and if it does hit you, it would do damage. Every time you get hit in the level, you see that you lose one of the hearts at the bottom of the screen. Every time you beat a level, you get 2 of the hearts back. So if I had been knocked down to only 3 hearts left, I would have gone back up to full health at the end of the level. Our next level is outside in the rain, and we add a few new enemies as well as one of the best weapons in the game, and that's the shotgun. The only negative thing about the shotgun is you only have a few shots with it. Be very careful when going over this bridge. As you can see, there's puddles that are below me. When I get over them, they don't do anything to me, but if you land on top of one or one comes into you, you'll be grabbed up and taken to another part of the stage. Make sure to grab this shotgun near the end of the stage, and as soon as the boss appears, start shooting at it. This is one of the hardest, if not the hardest boss in the entire game. By using all the shotgun blasts against it, you're only going to have to hit it a few times, but it's going to be very difficult to get within there to hit it and not take damage from it. If you can get it up the wall, you can see that you can actually hit it 2 or 3 times before it lands on the ground to attack you. This is going to be your best opportunity to do multiple shots of damage to it to take it out. Like I said before, easily one of the hardest bosses in the game. So make sure you use all the shotgun, and then try to get in as close as possible to start delivering the extra hits. As we begin the 4th level, you can see that I've always used some of the harpoons that are against the ceiling, which will help you take out some of these enemies. But considering that you throw the harpoon and lose it instantly, they're not the most effective weapon. Considering that these zombies are pretty easy to deal with, they aren't really that necessary, but it's a very cool thing to throw a harpoon at a demon. Be very careful when getting over these spinning blades on the ground. Prepare your jumps just right so that when you jump, the animation of the blade is about to go under you just like a jump rope, so you end up not taking damage from it. It may take 1 or 2 tries to get this down right, especially at this jump when there's 2 of the spinning blades. The second part of the stage is a mirror maze, and in the mirror maze you're going to have clones of Rick attack you from behind the mirrors. They take a few hits to kill and have all the same moves as you. You can get in a free shot immediately as soon as they spawn, and then for the second shot, I usually like to do a duck kick in order to hit them away from me. These guys are some of the hardest to exactly judge when they're going to be able to attack you or with what they're going to attack you, so just usually ducking and staying in the same place, not going after them, let them come to you. They always spawn from the same mirrors every time, so you can be prepared for when one's about to attack you. Now here's probably the biggest change in the game, the 4th boss. Originally, as you can see, that this boss is actually a mask floating and a bunch of floating heads going around it. In the original arcade release, it's actually an inverted cross, being surrounded by all these flying heads. While this boss is not necessarily harder than the previous level's boss, what is